All right, welcome back. In part one, we talked about Daniel's big prophecy of four great empires, with Rome being that final, powerful fourth one. But we also saw how Rome's story seems, well, unfinished, pointing to some kind of revived version that's still to come. So let's jump right in, because we are about to zoom in on a crucial detail about Rome that honestly changes the entire picture. For decades, anytime you heard about a revived Roman Empire, all eyes immediately turned to Western Europe, right? To places like Brussels and Berlin. But what if that was a huge mistake? The whole idea we're digging into here argues that this view misses half the story. The Eastern Roman Empire, the leg that actually outlasted the Western one by 1,000 years. So yeah, let's really unpack this. Let's look at this historical split and see exactly why this East-West divide isn't just some dusty old history lesson, but might just be a prophetically significant blueprint for what's coming down the line. I mean, historically, you just can't argue with the split. In AD 364, the Roman Empire was officially divided into two. The western part, with its capital in Rome, got overrun and totally collapsed just over a century later in AD 476. But the eastern leg, with its powerhouse capital in Constantinople, what we now call Istanbul, it didn't just hang on. It thrived. It didn't fall until AD 1453. Think about that for a second. The sheer scale of that time difference is just mind-blowing. The eastern leg of the Roman Empire outlasted the western leg by a full millennium, 1,000 years. That is a staggering fact that completely shifts the historical center of gravity, doesn't it? And this continuation of Rome, it's known to history as the Byzantine Empire. And it wasn't a different empire. It was the Roman Empire. It carried on with Roman law, Roman government, and Roman identity all the way into the Renaissance. And get this, its territory was centered in modern Turkey, Syria, Israel, and Greece. This was a Middle Eastern empire, not a European one. And this quote really nails the core argument from our source material, especially from Chuck Missler's point of view. He basically said that prophecy teachers got this kind of tunnel vision, treating Rome as this purely Western European thing. But the Eastern leg, it wasn't a footnote. It was a full half of the entire prophetic blueprint. So here's the crucial point. This isn't just about correcting some old history books. When we follow that Eastern leg straight into the biblical text itself, well, the evidence becomes pretty hard to ignore. Let's see how this forgotten history starts to unlock some of Daniel's most detailed prophecies. So, according to Missler, if you really want to understand where the final world ruler comes from, you have to look super closely at Daniel chapters 8 and 11. In both of these amazingly detailed passages, the prophetic spotlight, it doesn't point to Rome or Brussels. It consistently lands on the territory of the old Seleucid Empire. That was one of the Greek kingdoms after Alexander the Great, located right in modern-day Syria and Iraq. Okay, now let's add another huge piece of evidence to the pile. Daniel 9:26 makes this incredibly specific prophecy. It says that the people of the prince who is to come, this future world leader, will be the very ones who destroyed Jerusalem and its temple. Now we know exactly when this happened. AD 70, when the Roman legions under Titus came in and sacked Jerusalem. So case closed, right? The Romans did it, so the ruler must be Roman. But here's the question that flips the whole thing on its head. Who exactly were these Roman soldiers? And boom, here's the aha moment. The legions that leveled the temple in AD 70 weren't guys from Italy or Western Europe. No way. The historical records are clear. They were largely recruited from the eastern provinces of the empire, from Syria, from Turkey, and from other regions right there. The prophecy identified the people of the coming prince, and those people were Easterners. Their origin points east, not west. Okay, so just to recap, we've got a historical Eastern leg that lasted 1,000 years longer, and we have specific prophecies pointing to that exact same region. So now, let's see how this all translates into a modern geopolitical picture, one that might be way more stable than the ones we're used to. For most of the 20th century, we saw the world through this ideological lens. It was democracy versus communism. But the framework we're exploring here suggests that was, well, temporary. The really enduring, prophetically relevant conflict is a civilizational divide. A Western bloc, the heir to Roman civilization, squaring off against an Eastern bloc with its own powerful identity. And you can really see the difference in how long these things last. Ideologies like communism, they can rise and fall in a single lifetime. They're powerful, for sure, but they're often fleeting. Civilizations, though, They're rooted in deep history, geography, and culture. A prophetic framework built on that is going to be way more robust than one built on temporary political squabbles.
So, what do these blocks actually look like? Well, in this framework, the Western Bloc is a unifying Europe, politically and economically, the clear cultural heir of Western Rome. And the Eastern Bloc? That's dominated by the incredible rise of China, along with the other major players in that wider Asian and Middle Eastern sphere.
And that leaves us with a really provocative thought to chew on as we close out part 2. If this framework is even close to correct, then maybe the entire Western world has its eyes glued on Europe, just waiting for the next chapter of prophecy to unfold. But what if that's the wrong stage entirely? Is it possible that while we are all watching the West, the final act is quietly being prepared in the East? We're going to dive into that in our final part.